Welcome to a damn fine cup of coffee. He's got the coffee. I got the tea.
I actually do have a cup of coffee. That's going in, by the way.
Oh,
that's
no.
the intro we have now. We'll perfect it as time goes by, but that's the extent to which I want to commit effort to that.
Except I don't actually have a cup of tea right now. Saddened.
Oh, and I actually do have a cup of coffee.
Oh, fantastic. So,
I mean,
pardon?
it's damn fine, but it's that's actually the problem. It was the bottom of the thing, so a lot of the grains or the grounds were fine, so they kind of seeped into the coffee a little bit.
Well, you know what they say about, like, what we learned in high school about chemical reactions and such, right? The greater the surface area, the better.
Yeah, but not when it, like, sinks into the drink itself.
Oh, yeah, that part sucks.
Yeah, so it's a too fine cup of coffee.
You can tell your future from that, like tea leaves. Except don't.
I'm gonna try that now. Like if I finish my cup of coffee in the middle of recording, I'm just gonna stop everything and read my fortune.
Take it to find a way to read the tea leaves.
Maybe I'll Google that quietly in the background as you're telling me about the thing that you've brought for show and tell today.
So what I've brought for show and tell, or like talk and tell, or I brought some stuff to talk to you about. So I initially started this out by looking into the history of the Philly cheesesteak, as you do.
Well, of course, this is probably stemming from your relatively recent visit to Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I am planning to go back for a second round. But yeah.
Because one wasn't enough.
One was certainly not enough.
One Philly cheesesteak is not filling.
No, no. Sadly, it isn't. However, I was Googling this, and hilariously, I looked up just the Philadelphia cheesesteak, but there's two things that, like, the second thing that Google will try to autocorrect it to is the Philadelphia cheesecake, which, however, is not actually a thing in Philadelphia. It is actually more a cake made from cream cheese by the brand Philadelphia, which I believe is owned by Kraft. You can correct me on that one if you ever find it out later.
I'm just imagining a cheesecake topped with, like, sliced beef.
I mean, it's not the weirdest thing, but...
No.
And in reading about it, I found out it was apparently developed in the early 20th century. I enjoy the choice of wording on its Wikipedia article, developed. Kind of like it's like technology, the pinnacle of cheesesteak technology we've reached.
Well, I was going to say, like, insulin was developed.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things were developed. I just find that such a funny way to describe it. Apparently, it's often credited, or it's like its discovery. It's not discovery. Its development is often credited to a couple, Pat and Harry Olivieri, who made it in the 1930s. Supposedly, after they had been running like a hot dog stand, they decided to try making a different sandwich one day, and they made it initially. It was just a steak sandwich that just had like steak and caramelized onions on it, but had no cheese. Apparently, the cheese was provolone. Apparently, the first one, and it was first added by some dude named Joe Lorenza, who worked at one of their locations, because they did eventually own a restaurant called Pat's King of Steaks, and apparently they had I think they had more than one location. Correct me on that one too. But there's this first fellow who added cheese to it named Joe Lorenza, who had the nickname, and I quote you, Cocky Joe. He was so cocky that he put cheese on a sandwich with steak and onions. I don't know.
I mean, it is bold, really.
Yeah, bold statement. Pat and Harry, yeah, they have a restaurant, and it's still around too. You can go to it in Philadelphia, get the ye old cheesesteaks, and it's like apparently, yeah, like it traditionally made. You cook the beef, like scramble it almost, like not like eggs, but basically, yeah, it's like a ribeye meat or whatever, and you brown it and scramble it with a spatula, and then you just add the cheese over top of it right then and there. And then,
so once I crack open the cow egg into the skillet, that's when I add the cheese. Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Crack in the cow meat. I mean the cow muscle, and then put over it fermented cow juice. And not fermented. It's probably It's not probably.
I
not,
mean, kind of.
I mean, yeah. I don't think ferment is the correct word for that.
Was alcoholic cheese ever something we had mused about in our exuberant youth?
I don't know, but I feel like that
carbonated milk was.
I feel like that just takes like the tradition of, or like not tradition, but the idea of cheese and wine and just mixes it all together into one monster. It's like a degree of efficiency above that experience.
I swear, officer, I just had some cheese.
But yeah, and much in line with our jokes about the Philadelphia cheesesteak being meat scooped from the streets, it is in fact scooped into the bun and pressed shut and then cut. But there are like a weird number of variants of these things. There's like a chicken cheesesteak, which is also referred to as a chicken Philly, which obviously uses chicken instead of beef. Then there's the pizza steak, which is just a cheesesteak but topped with marinara and mozzarella. Then there's the vegan cheesesteak, which uses like mushrooms or seitan as a replacement for the beefsteak. For those of you unaware, seitan is basically just wheat gluten. You remove all the starch from it, and then you have like this gluten left over that you cook. And then there's like a cheesesteak hoagie, which, by the way, sounds like the most unappetizing name.
Oh, yeah.
However, I'm sure the dish itself is actually quite nice, but just like the word hoagie never really sounded appealing to me.
Hoagie has all the best parts of, like, hog and all the worst parts of doggy.
See, I was gonna say hawk and loogie, but...
Ooh, actually, yeah.
It's just both of those words as one, and it's unsettling to me.
Hoagie is almost automatopoeic of hawking a loogie.
Kinda, yeah. Kinda, yeah. Unsettling, but yeah. And then apparently there's a variant of this referred to simply as the heater, which is a Philly cheesesteak with jalapenos, buffalo sauce, jalapeno cheddar, and it's a signature of the Philadelphia Phillies baseball team, which is the strangest name for a baseball team I could ever think of, because that's like you just named your team the name of the city plus the name of people who would be from the city.
Wait, what's the team name again?
Philadelphia Phillies.
Oh, that is weird. Unless they're talking about like a filly, like a horse, but I imagine not.
Might be, but it's just like, it's like called them the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto Torontonians. Or like the Ottawa Senators, the Ottawans?
It is actually Ottawan. I believe I've said to my brother when he moved to the city, I think I called him Young Ottawan.
Beautiful.
He didn't laugh.
Understandably.
Now, am I to understand that there are the Philly cheesesteak obviously comes from Philadelphia, but do other regions have, is there a Boston cheesesteak or like a Delaware cheesesteak?
I don't think so. I think if anything, I'm pretty sure they're just referred to as melts.
Oh, you know what? Yeah.
And anywhere else, they're referred to as Philly melts.
Well, yeah, I suppose steak and cheese is like a distinct Philadelphia creation, so I guess you kind of have to give it that name.
See, I don't even know if it's a distinct Philadelphia thing. I think that's just how it turned out over time.
Yeah, actually, I could kind of see that, because like you've got the hamburger, and the name came from a single city, but I doubt Hamburg was like the only place that had pattied meat, you know?
I mean, if we're going to strip away a lot of the nuance of this, that apparently you could argue that a hamburger, like a cheeseburger and a Philly cheesesteak, are effectively the same thing.
Whoa.
If broken down to the cheeseburger only has like a patty, cheese, and onions.
Right. Well, and like that I wouldn't mind at all. Like getting a simple cheeseburger from McDonald's, like the only thing additional is probably going to be like a pickle.
Yeah.
And then onions and cheese. That kind of makes me want a cheeseburger now. Only because I know I can't get a Philly cheesesteak delivered to me through Uber Eats, but I can get
try.
Really shitty cheeseburgers. Well, like what I could do, I guess, is in the comments a request that they make my cheeseburger more like a Philly cheesesteak. Yeah, just ask them to cut up the hamburger into like strips,
into bits.
Put the onion and the cheese melted all together on the griddle, and I could get a McPhilly cheese.
I feel like you could order, like, it wouldn't surprise me Obviously, I'm joking, but it would not surprise me if you could order one through Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
Same day shipping. It's just like a frozen Philly cheesesteak arrives at your door.
I really wouldn't doubt that the amount of stuff you can get, like, to get frozen food, next day shipping, like, people get their groceries online all the time.
Yeah, they just like come in like a box of ice.
I'm just imagining us sitting here on Discord talking. I hear your doorbell, and you're like, "Oh, my cheesesteak's here!"
Oh crap! Wicked! It's dinner time. Yeah, apparently though, common like the types of cheese that are fairly common on cheesesteaks. This is the part where it kind of like diverges into the generic topic of cheese. There's like provolone, something referred to simply as American cheese. It's just a type of like processed cheese. It's like the craft slices.
Oh, I think we all know what American cheese is.
And then hilariously, Cheese Whiz. Cheese Whiz is common on cheesesteaks. And apparently Cheese Whiz was first sold in 1952 by Kraft Foods. See, for some reason I thought it would have been sold earlier as some kind of like weird... I thought this would have been like the natural procession of some kind of weird cheese spread thing that occurs. I don't know. I thought it would have a longer history than it did. But it was just like first sold in 1952 as the product of like, a bunch of food scientists. Yeah, it was developed by a team led by food scientist Edwin Treisman.
Yeah, Cheese Whiz looks and tastes exactly like something that had to be invented by science.
Yeah, and I'm just amazed by how recent it was. 1952. That's like, just process that in your mind, and I don't know. It's like it's less than 70 years at least.
Like all of our grandparents were alive.
Yeah.
Like that is within 2 generations.
To consider,
of us.
My dad is only 6 years younger than Cheese Whiz.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Actually,
so
yeah.
I mean, if anyone ever tried to like tell him he was old, he could always point at it and be like, you know what? I'm younger than Cheese Whiz. So
yeah, and like the weird thing is that you want to know what else is younger than Cheese Whiz, but only by 2 years? Godzilla.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Godzilla.
Yeah.
The first Godzilla movie came out in 1954. And like
clearly inspired by the monster that was destroying Philadelphia.
Cheese Whiz, of course. But apparently, Cheese Whiz ran into a little bit of an issue with the FDA. It is now described properly as a cheese product, and I learned that's because the FDA has these things referred to as standards of identity. Things that it's just got a written rule in place that they've all unanimously decided describes a certain type of like food item.
Yeah.
So I feel like I don't know where the FDA stands on that sandwich alignment chart, but I'm pretty sure they've got like a pretty solid position.
We're gonna have to devote an entire episode to constructing and analyzing a sandwich alignment chart, because it's something you and I have talked about for a long time, but have never really sat down.
I figured we would have gone more for the pie alignment chart, but
oh, actually, yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking. I was going through my notes recently, and I literally have like a half-constructed pie alignment chart in one of my notes. We'll have to devote an entire episode to that, because I have some things to bring up.
Yeah,
but that is not for today. So okay, yeah. So the FDA didn't want to classify it as cheese.
Yeah, because
the same way that like orange drink is not orange juice.
Kinda, but because basically what this is oh wait, no, this was Velveeta. My bad. Velveeta was the one that ran into this. Did Cheese Whiz run into it? Let me just have a quick check.
I feel like it...
No, it didn't, apparently.
No?
Yeah, but Velveeta did. Velveeta is the brand name of, like, something very similar. It's a processed cheese product that tastes like American cheese. Like an American cheese, according to the Wikipedia page. With a softer and smoother texture than non-processed cheese.
Yeah, Velveeta just sounds smoother.
Yes, it does, but also it can. This was the one that they had to refer to it as a cheese product because it contained milk protein concentrate, which apparently does not meet the. I guess there must be some. I haven't looked into the standard of identity for what constitutes a a cheese, but I guess containing
Right.
milk protein concentrate must like bar it from being considered a cheese. But yeah, and like apparently, well, give me a second. I just need to remember how I got to easy cheese from here.
That's a question we all ask ourselves
here it is,
at some
but
point.
As of 2002, oh no, wait, no, that's not it. Sorry. I know. Oh, that was it. It was from Cheese Whiz. It brought me to Easy Cheese. It brought me to Easy Cheese.
Now, is this easy cheese like easy the letters cheese?
I think it depends on the brand almost. Like Wikipedia's page for it just has it as. I'm sorry. I keep chuckling at it.
It is amusing.
Yeah. It's just the name. But Easy Cheese, it's like it is pronounced, it is written exactly how you would spell those two words. But
Right.
it wouldn't surprise me if there is some stylization somewhere about Easy Cheese.
It ain't cheesy being easy.
Okay, but yeah, I found out that Easy Cheese was distributed by Mondelez International, which is a company who I actually lived near one of their factories during my last 3 years of university, and you could see they got the whole sign out front, but the entire area smelled like blue raspberry. I'm pretty sure they do like gummy candies. But,
yeah.
like, holy hell did it smell like blue raspberry, like, all the time.
It's astonishing what manufacturing can do to the air. Like in Trenton, where we grew up, like you would go outside, and if the pulp mill was running, you got this like sickeningly sweet caramel air.
Yeah, except I know what you mean. I know what you mean by that, but it smelled like, well, it smelled like wet paper, but because that's what it was.
Well, yeah.
But like, yeah, I know what you mean. It did. For me, it didn't smell as much like caramel because like there was this weird, almost like bitter twist to it. But yeah, I know what you mean. It just like it smelled just like someone soaked a stack of paper and like threw it in your room. It's like
Yeah.
wet
No,
paper scented air fresheners.
It's astonishing what the manufacture of like things that we eat can smell so bad.
Yeah. But I also found out that on the webpage for Easy Cheese, it is actually it's very interesting because it's actually a pseudoplastic, which okay, no, I know how that sounds. But
That's a common criticism for like Cheese Whiz. It's like, oh, it's plastic. So go ahead, confirm all our preconceptions.
No. But but what a pseudoplastic is, it's a type of non-Newtonian fluid. So there's like there's 4 types of non-Newtonian fluids that kind of exist. There's like 4 types of fluids, I should say. There's a Newtonian fluid, which is the one that if you ever look at a graph of it, it's just like a straight line. It's basically saying that like the viscosity of the thing varies with how hard you push on it. Straight line because like I'm gonna get a little mathy here, but like the slope of the line on this chart, it's basically shear stress, which is I guess comparable to how hard you're pushing on it, and shear rate, which you could consider to be here's a better phrase for it, but I could only best describe it as like the flow rate.
Right.
It's not quite the appropriate terminology, but it's kind of helpful to think of it that way. And the slope of that line is what is referred to as the viscosity. In a Newtonian fluid, it's constant because it's a straight line, it's linear. And so it's like the harder you push on it, the faster it flows, all that good stuff. It's a linear relation between the shear stress and the shear rate. However, in non-Newtonian fluids, that is not constant. It's like a curvy line. And like dilatants are the ones that you most commonly think of when you think non-Newtonian fluids, like cornstarch and water. That's referred to as a dilatant. It gets harder to move. Just let me pull up a quick graph here. Basically, the shear rate, but yeah, so the dilatant, the shear rate increases less and less as the shear stress increases, meaning it's becoming like harder to move. It's getting like more rigid. A pseudoplastic, however, does the exact opposite. The harder you push on it, the looser it gets, the less viscous it gets. So, like, ketchup is another example of a pseudoplastic.
Oh, right, yeah, because that's why they say, like, hit the bottom of the bottle. It temporarily makes it less viscous and will help.
Shake, shake the ketchup bottle, first a little, then a lottle, as my numerical methods professor said. Yeah, I know. No one ever on the face of the earth has probably ever said that rhyme ever.
Well, I hope you wrote that down in class, because that sounds like the most important part of.
It was numerical methods. It was
mechanics.
Completely unrelated, but. Okay, it was somewhat related because you can model fluid mechanics with numerical methods quite nicely too, but that's beside the point. But yeah, it's a pseudoplastic, so it is basically the inverse of cornstarch and water. You push on it. If you were to punch it, it would just get looser. And you can.
That'd be a weird sensation.
And there's actually on its Wikipedia page. This is where there is like a legit math behind Easy Cheese. That you could actually model this relation of its viscosity with a model called the Herschel-Bulkley model, which you could use to model like the the shear stress and the viscosity with the viscosity and such. So there's math behind Easy Cheese, and apparently the reason this is the case is because it contains sodium alginate. And sodium alginate gives it these kind of like the pseudoplastic properties. And also I found out that apparently this because of the way Easy Cheese is, it's not actually sprayed like a traditional aerosol, because like traditional aerosols like mix the thing that you're spraying with the stuff, like the pressurized gas, and then when you open the valve, the pressurized gas pulls portions of the stuff in the can out with it, and it makes like a fine spraying mist. However,
I completely forgot that Easy Cheese came in like a can, like that just until you said that, I was thinking we're just talking about like another spread, but you're right. It's even weirder than I remembered.
Yeah, it's spray cheese. It's also referred to as aerosol cheese, but that's kind of a misnomer because it doesn't actually aerosolize.
What if it did?
I know, but yeah, it's because like the compressed nitrogen does not combine like with the cheese to make like a cheese aerosol, which would be like a fine cheesy mist. But I know that's kind of terrifying if it could. But rather, it actually the compressed gas is kind of it's kind of like a caulking gun, you know, like silicone sealant or like bathroom sealant. You know how it's got like this piston at the back end.
Yeah.
So basically, the compressed gas, there's like one of those pistons inside the can, but the compressed gas is actually behind that piston. So the moment you open the valve, the compressed gas, like the pressure, obviously there's no more back pressure, so the compressed gas pushes the piston forward, squeezing the cheese out of the can.
So it's more like toothpaste than it is hairspray.
Correct. It's basically a pressurized cheese syringe inside a metal can.
I would just like to point out that 3 separate times you've given me like an idea for a title for this episode. I think you just said one, a fine mist of cheese, the subject of cheese in general, and I'm blanking on the third one. The mathematics of Easy Cheese.
The mathematics of Easy Cheese.
All of these sound like what I want people's first impression to be.
Yeah. Also, I just looked at Easy Cheese's webpage, and this is where it gets a little strange. At the bottom, you know how it says "See also," and there's like Cheese Whiz, Velveeta, and at the bottom it says. Now, bear with me. I'm gonna have a hard time saying this. Government cheese.
You didn't have a hard time saying that at all.
No, because I laughed after the fact. Oh, I'm sorry, my voice is cracking from that. But so I haven't actually looked into this, but apparently government cheese is a processed cheese that's provided to welfare beneficiaries. and food stamp recipients, and the elderly receiving Social Security in the United States, and is still provided to food charities. Processed cheese was used in military kitchens since World War II and in schools since as early as the 1950s. Government cheese is a commodity cheese that was controlled by the U.S. federal government from the time World War II ended and into the early 1980s. Government cheese was created to maintain the price of dairy when the dairy industry subsidies artificially increased the supply of milk and created a surplus of milk that was then converted into cheese, butter, or powdered milk. The cheese, along with the butter and dehydrated powder, was stored in over 150 warehouses across 35 states. The more you know.
I'm a little baffled, but so you said from 45 until the early 80s. So that means it ended at some point. I'm just imagining like Ronald Reagan, 1982, like trying to figure out what to do with this like damn government cheese subsidy.
On December 22nd, 1981, President Ronald Reagan signed
Oh no! I do want to hear this. I have to remind myself. I want to hear this.
Okay. President Ronald Reagan signed and authorized into law that 560 million pounds, 250,000 metric tons of cheese that the Commodity Credit Corporation had been stockpiling should be released, saying that it would, in quote, be distributed free to the needy by non-profit organizations. Ronald Reagan, in his official statement about the distribution of the cheese inventory of the Common Credit Corporation, said, "The 1981 Farm Bill I signed today will slow the rise in price support levels, but even under this bill, surpluses will continue to pile up. A total of more than 560 million pounds of cheese has already been consigned to warehouses. So more distributions may be necessary as we continue our drive to root out waste in government and make the best possible use of our nation's resources."
Alright, so instead of this little like Reagan-y headcanon, oh my god. I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's... Oh my god. Okay, now all I'm imagining is, like, Reagan signing something in the law and just turning around and being like, "Release the cheese."
As the bill stated, any state that would ask for cheese would get 30 million pounds. And it would come in 5-pound blocks. The bill was approved in the House by a margin of 2 votes.
Oh, so it was divisive.
In the Senate, it had a much larger approval rate. The logic behind the distribution was to effectively remove waste and to use all possible resources available in the United States. One representative from the USDA remarked that probably the cheapest and most practical thing would be to dump it in the ocean.
I wish that this had continued. Well, okay, no, so the thing he signed means that today, representatives from, like, Vermont could ask the federal government for 3 million pounds of cheese.
No. You missed that by a factor of 10. 30 million.
Oh, yes, my mistake. Why is this not more commonly heard about, you know? Like, if I became the governor of a small state, because I mean, like you said, 30 million. There's only a single state that has more than 30 million people. So yeah. Imagine, and I'll use Vermont as an example, one of the least populous states. That would be like, what was it in pounds?
5-pound blocks. Like it came in.
Right,
it was 30 million pounds. So divide that by 5, and you have like units. That could be like 30 million. Divide that by 5 is 6 million. So if you have like 6 million people, each of them would get a 5-pound block of cheese.
Well, and that's the thing. Some states don't have 6 million people. So some people would be getting more than one. Like, wouldn't you want to do that during a state election to like boost your popularity? It's like, well, he may be corrupt, but he gave us 5 pounds of cheese each.
Yeah, and like ingredients like traditional processed American cheese that consists of a variety of cheese types and other ingredients such as emulsifiers blended together and may be made of any of cheddar cheese, Colby cheese, cheese curd, or granular cheese. So there's our answer to what government cheese is.
Oh my god.
I just love it. No, it just
That was a ride.
oh, fantastic.